You are now tuned in to Polarizing Figures. Today's hot topic, we're going to get into the gang world of California, behind the scenes of what actually goes on, not the glamorous life of the gang life. But before we get into it, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Let's get to it.
What was your life like growing up in Inglewood? What did you do? What were you into?
Um, it was blissful for the most part. I think a lot of things that we normalized or that we typified weren't normal at all. But I think it was a different era, it was a different time. I think people are a lot more willing to, you know, not hold it against you. So the smoking, the drinking, I wasn't exposed to like a lot of drugs. Those were usually things that I found on the outskirts of the community. But I wasn't really tempted by those things. Childhood, I had both my mom and my dad, so I had it better than a lot of other people. So I didn't really have complaints in that regard, but it got hectic at home at times. My father and I, we had a very tumultuous relationship, to put it mildly. There's a lot of physical stuff that went on. And I resented it at the time. I didn't feel that it was wrong, I didn't like it. I know how it made me feel.
Yeah.
So it was one of those things I became very aggressive, right? I was already kind of dealing with little things I had in my life where I was mixed. In the fourth grade, I was already as tall as my teacher. I had big feet. I hadn't grown into my body yet. So I had all the, my mom was my barber, so I had strange haircuts, typical things like that. But I mean, I was a fairly normal kid, but as I got older, it always seemed like I had people that kind of wanted to like touch on a nerve, right? And I was like sensitive. Those insecurities weren't about them, they were about me. I think I looked at that time, now I know of the victim creator mindset.
Yeah, because being mixed and tall and cool haircuts is like, people love that now.
Yeah,
So,
I'd be in.
back
I'd be
in
like
the
a
day,
hipster doofus or something.
You'd be like
Yeah,
the coolest guy on campus.
yeah. Go figure. But I mean, this is the 70s and the 80s.
Yeah, back in the day, you were making fun of, yeah, so every little thing that was to you like an insecurity
Yeah.
got touched upon and it triggered that anger, that resentment.
Well, yeah, I think I magnified it, right? I think there was no, there seemed to be no end in sight because I tried so much. I think what kind of exacerbated it was the fact that I felt like a fraud and I knew it.
In what sense?
When you're not your authentic self, right? I mean, you can do so much in every group. There's a hierarchy, right, or a pecking order of how things go. You're either the ultra popular person, or if I hang around you enough, then maybe I'll become popular. Some of that popularity will rub off on me, right? And so I did what I needed to do. I think that's why sports appeals to a lot of people, especially as kids or like the military, whatever.
Yeah.
That sense of belonging.
Like being on a team.
Yeah, but I was always like, if I hung out and this is Inglewood, it's predominantly Black, Latino. There's still a few whites in Inglewood in the 70s and early 80s. There's some Asian population, Tongans. But I would always get when I started becoming interested in girls and whatnot, oh, what are you? And I'd be like, well, I'm Black. Because I identify as being Black. But they're like, but you're Black in what?
Yeah.
So no matter how I phrased it or no matter how I responded, it was always that. And so the colorism that goes on in the community of, oh, you ain't really Black, well, you're Black, but you're not Black like that.
You never really like fit in anywhere.
Yeah, you don't really fit in,
Yeah.
right? And so that it taps on that nerve again, right? And I think, I wish I could go back and tell the younger me, like, it's gonna be all right. It's gonna be okay, just ride it out, this storm shall pass, right? But, when you're that young, everything is like frantic. Everything is like the sky is falling, right? And so I would go into different spaces and I'd occupy different hats, right? And, attempt to kind of cloak these insecurities of mine, right? So I wasn't real big on drugs. I used to drink. I wasn't a real big, I smoked the occasional pot, but that stuff was abundant because it was free.
Right.
You could almost get it in, 4-finger dime bags, and people used to just give it away. But, and I was fortunate in that sense that I didn't. And in the one instance that I did actually have some pills, I actually overdosed. So that was another reason why I was like, you know what, maybe I need to just,
It's not for you.
yeah, altogether,
So what was your thing? What was your vice?
My vice was alcohol.
Okay.
Because it was one of the things to where it's, I'm outgoing, I'm wired that way, right? It's
Yeah.
my mom's kind of like a communicator, a talker, kind of goofballish. And I think alcohol played into that. that narrative, right? Like I'm the fun guy. But then if things got out of hand, it was also Popeye. Now this is my spinach, and this is what I'm going to use to kind of. So it was a very, I was like a very damaged person. I don't think it was a quality thing of me being good or bad. I think I was just misdirected. I was being pulled in all these different places, and the root of it all was me. It wasn't. These people were living their lives and doing what they needed to do, right? And it was just like, well, whatever can get me out of feeling like this, let me get to that.
Right.
And it seemed like the more I did that, the further I got away from my authentic self.
And so, at what age did you start getting, did this life come about? Like, where did you turn to that
I would
in
say
your youth?
like the 7th grade.
7th grade.
The 7th grade. I used to flirt. I mean, I was a petty little dime store, hooligan. I'd do little mischievous things. I was not a, steal something every now and then, or but car stereos and stuff like that. It's typically how people ramp up, right?
Yeah. How does that happen?
Well, it's usually around. We have friends and they have older siblings, and so it's kind of like these are the things that they're doing, right? And us being nosy and being precocious, or hey, what's that about? You know what I mean? And then don't let money come involved, right? To where it's like, well, this is because if I want them new shoes you have, my mom's not going to buy me them. I get 2 pairs of shoes when I go shopping. I get school shoes and I get play shoes. When you come home from school, take your school shoes off and go put your play shoes on. So if I want them new Jordans or the new LeBrons or whatever shoe was out at the time, it's kind of like you had to have other ways to procure currency, right? And so it was a quick way for us to make a buck. And it also brought you social capital.
Right.
Because once people seen that, you were willing to get your hands dirty, right? And then it's like, now they're not telling you to get out of here. Like, mind you, man, get out of here, man. Now it's like, oh, what's up?
Like it brought you some respect. And
It brought you some respect, and it got you into certain circles that you wouldn't have been allowed to had you just been a person that was a wallflower.
And what circles did you want to get into at that time?
Most of the people that I ran with were friends, so it wasn't like
You were like gang affiliated.
No, when we were all together in elementary school, none of us were really gang affiliated.
Right.
We were like on the outer fringes, but we had family members or friends, and we knew people that were in the gang life. But it didn't really. We still had that innocence, so to speak, right? I mean, we knew of these things. We've heard of these things. Oh, it's a stabbing over here or a fight over here or something like that. But we're like, okay, because we were still a lot into sports, football, baseball, basketball, being kids.
For sure.
And then there became a point to where it's like, even though we're kids, no one wants to be the pansy. No one wants to be the weakest link, right? So if you somehow take a sudden turn to where you become more aggressive or you become more assertive, and it starts off innocently enough, because even as friends, I might joke with you, but a lot of things are said with a smile on the face, but it's really contempt. I comment on your figure, or I comment on a feature on your face or your clothes, and people laugh, oh, that's hilarious, right? But it's really my way of tearing you down. But then once the group kind of clings to that, it builds your power base. So now I either get with what you're doing, right, and attempt to keep up, or I do it in the opposite direction to challenge you, which comes with its own set of risks, because now maybe you and I aren't friends at all now.
So then what did you do? Which side did you choose?
I chose the darker side, unfortunately, because a lot of my friends that actually genuinely care for me stayed in a lot of the lanes that they were already accustomed to. I think a lot of it had to do with family. If the family was more close-knit, I noticed that there was a tendency of them, though, they might veer off the trail a little bit, but they kind of never lost sense of who they were. It's almost like, for me,
they had like a ground, and they had like a foundation, solid foundation they can come back to, like a home, basically.
Exactly.
So what does the darker side look like to you? What was that like?
Strangely enough, right, a lot of it was things that I had already been exposed to. So, now that I look at it, I go, wow, that's, because I've taken self-help classes and I know about trauma, right? But they were very traumatic experiences, right? But at the time when we looked at it, I grew up, Century Boulevard was what they refer to as a known blade or a holstro, as well as Prairie, as was Imperial. So when, they would send us to the store, and it was like, we had a store on Century, which was considered a corner market. I could go to that one, but I couldn't go to the Westerner liquor store, which was across Century Boulevard, like 5 lanes of traffic. So my mom's like, you can't go over there. But when you tell a kid they can't go over
You
there,
wanna
that's
go over
exactly
there.
why you want to go over there.
Yeah.
And when you go over there, you got the pimps over there, you got the hustlers over there, you got the prostitutes over there, you got all the people of ill repute over there, right? And we're kids, they're not going to do anything to us. But we want to be nosy. We want to rubberneck. And what are they doing? Maybe, we used to go over, I remember some of the women that worked there would say, hey, walk me down here to this burger stand on Inglewood Avenue in Century. And I'm like, why does she need a kid to walk her down the street to a burger stand? But understanding when somebody explained it to me, oh, she doesn't want to walk down there by herself because there are other women that work down there that won't let her come down there. But if you're with her, they won't mess with her. And then I'm like, oh. But then when I take her down there, oh, here's $10 or here's $5. Oh, for that? Just for walking a block? All right. But I look at it now like, look where you're going. I'm not walking to Disneyland. I'm not walking to the White House. I'm walking into a shadier, an even shadier or more questionable part of the community. So
the progress was like small things that happened as you got older.
Yeah.
That you continued to like accept and think was normal.
Yeah.
And then at one point you get to something bigger.
Well, the increment, I think that's the danger in it, right? Because I think you become inured to something to where, we talk about somebody that's nose blind, right? To where you no longer have a strong sense of smell, right? I think that happens too with our GPS system, our sense of direction, our homing beacon, right? Like our signal's weak. The further we get from home, it's like the ping is weak, right? But we're so far out there because whatever it is you're following, it's like when you go to the beach and you get in the water and you're only up maybe to your waist. And you just looked at your mom and them on the picnic blanket out on the sand, and now you're 50 yards this way because the tide is
Sure.
imperceptibly taking you down there, right? And I think it's the same with a lot of our relationships, right? There are times where maybe I should have cut it off cold turkey and ran screaming in the opposite direction, right? But I think this is part of the price you pay when I spoke to earlier about being a fraud.
Right.
And I think even then I knew you're gonna pay for this. I don't think that it would be something as disastrous as this. Pac used to have a line. He used to say, in so many tears, he'd say, who thought in elementary I'd see the penitentiary?
Yeah.
So it's always like, it's not gonna happen to me.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna get AIDS, I'm not gonna get killed, I'm not gonna get shot, I'm not gonna get LWOP. That happens to other people. And then,
So how did that happen to you?
I caught my first case in the state for great bodily injury that I ended up doing like a 90-day observation. So off a 90-day observation, you might do 45
Great bodily
days.
injury? What is
Yeah,
that?
that's like, they have different degrees of in the state of California, but great bodily injuries is like broken bones.
And how old were you during this time?
I was 19.
Okay.
I was 19. It was a brawl. It's a typical brawl up at Lenox Park. It was much like a melee. It was probably like 10 on 10 or whatever. And I remember one of the guys got hurt. I think he got his eye or something was like dislocated or something. And they like, hey, you're facing 7 years. But because this is your first offense, they have what they call a joint suspension, where they basically suspend the sentence, but they give you what they call a tail, right? So you go do 90 days. It's like a review period. It's like a probationary period. They see if you're willing out the program, if you're even jail material yet. But here lies the trick. Most of us, right? It's like with anything. Somebody being tortured. They just want the torture to stop. So I'm gonna tell you what you want. I just want I want the pain to stop. When you're in here, you just want this to stop. I don't like being in prison. Maybe you're claustrophobic. Maybe you don't like small spaces. Maybe you're like, what do I need to do to go home right now? Well, look, we got this. Now, if I told you, I'm gonna give you this 45 days, these 90 days, you're only gonna do 45, and you can get out. You're like, oh,
I could do this.
you talk with your family, oh, that sounds like a plan. With one caveat. If you mess up and you get arrested again, doesn't matter what that case is, that 4-year tail is yours, without question, non-negotiable. So on top of you fighting the new case, whether you beat it or not, they have you on the for your tail, right? So I got caught for another incident for a robbery. They gave me, they really did me justice in the sense that they could have ran it bow-legged, but they chose not to. They just ran it consecutively. They gave me 4 years. Instead of giving me, they could have gave me 3 and 4, which would
Why
have
were
been
you
7.
robbing?
Lazy money. You know what I mean? I had work ethic. It was strange because I had construction jobs. I had worked construction jobs under the table because I wasn't a licensed contractor. But I had friends. I had a friend named Belisi. He's actually a brother of one of the women I used to talk to. It's our older brother. And he used to give me jobs. We used to go out to Palos Verdes or Century City, Studio City, and do retaining walls and driveways and, you know, things like, you know, pavement, you know, and it wasn't, it was honest money,
But not enough.
but not enough for what I wanted to do, which wasn't much, but I was just being lazy, being a bonehead.
So then you got caught for robbing.
Yeah.
And this is small things, big things, like houses, like what kind of robbing is it?
Businesses.
Businesses.
And it's always petty, right? Because ultimately, no matter how much money you accumulate, right? Even if you go and rob something where the take is $20 million, the toll that it's gonna take, not just on your well-being, on your psyche, on your spirit, on your family, the people that are impacted, and your victims, right? But even more so of yourself, since we're talking about like self and self-preservation, right? It's really damaging. The money does nothing. It solves nothing. Even if you get away with it, right? The fact that you have to, like if you win the lottery or you start a successful business, right? These are things that you could crow about. These are things that you can, you know, that's another feather in your cap. These are things that you could be proud of, that
Right.
you can go to your family and your friends and share this moment with them. You can't do that when you're a criminal.
No.
So there's no real joy in it. I mean, they're saying there's honor amongst thieves. You know, these people are all in this cutthroat society, right? And they're not impressed with it because they're trying to do their own thing.
So then why did you keep doing these things if you didn't get any satisfaction from them?
It's a repetitive cycle. It's one of these things to where it's like there's never enough, right? At any given moment, you know, if you look at somebody that's innocent, maybe when they come off the porch and they're like a couple crimes in or something, and it tends to be, nobody just goes straight to like, you know, murder or, you know, something like that. But if they stop very early on, maybe they get back to where they once were and they get on a healthier path or a better trajectory. But being petty is one of the things I excelled at. There wasn't a lot of life experience for me to kind of like get information from. I wasn't confident in confiding in my parents, like, hey, you know I'm out here in the streets doing these type of things.
Yeah. So then what was next after that robbery that led to a deeper sentence?
I ended up I did 21 months off that sentence.
The 21 months that you were in jail, like, did you learn anything? Did you get any like education on not going back to do the same thing?
I'd like to believe that I did, but I can honestly say that I didn't, in the sense that I was still chasing what eluded me on the streets. So whether or not it's, you know, the popularity, the being in with the certain chick I want to be with.
Were you
know.
in a gang?
Yeah, I was.
You were in a gang.
I was.
What I don't know anything about gangs like that. What is it like being in a gang? And how did you get into it? Like, how did you get initiated into
To sum it up, 'cause I don't know if we have enough time.
Sum it up.
It's the closest thing that a person can relate to without being in a cult.
Okay.
Because typically, when you think of, you know, we speak about the doses like dopamine, Oxycontin, you know, the pleasure chemicals, right? You know, serotonin, epinephrine, right? The things that give us pleasure, the things that make us go, the things that give us pop, right? Even caffeine, right? Gamblers,
Chocolate
where they
chip
get
cookies.
chocolate, right? Where, you know, you get that excitement, you start wiggling your foot, right? Gang life is not one of those. There are very few high moments. You don't, when you get into it with people that are considered your opposition, there's no like gloating, there's no sense of accomplishment. You know, there's a difference between somebody that serves their country and you meet them and you say, thank you for your service.
Yeah.
Because they've served a higher calling. or talking to a priest or a pastor or a business person or a president or former president. But when you're talking about gang life, so much of it is based on treachery, right? And I think that's kind of, for me, is where that's the bump in the road, right? That kind of makes me question myself. More so, you know, they didn't come actively recruit me. This is an area, most of us, these gangs exist in the areas that we grew up in. So it's a stone's toss, or you might live smack dab in the middle of that particular neighborhood. So, I mean, but because we're friends, we grew up together, right? We kind of commiserate and connect on things that we can relate to, right? But these are things that are painful. These aren't things that, you know, oh, how's your daughter doing? How's your son doing? Oh, I heard your mom's going off to become a professor at Yale. These aren't the type of conversations we're having. We're having, oh, such and such got caught. Or you know, such and such got shot. Or you know, you going to the funeral, right?
So why do you think it has such a big grip? Like gang life has such a big grip on people. It's such a strong like entity.
It's a strong, and it's a, you know, it's strange because if you look at like the politics, the global politics, right? You know, we'll ask like, well, how can one man be a dictator and rule over millions of people, right? And people speak to fear and they speak of many of these other things. And I think that the social stigma of not belonging, because everybody in the community is not from a gang. My dad wasn't in the gang, even though they had gangs in Detroit, the Chili Max and the Rollers, they had like different gangs in Detroit, but he wasn't a gang member because he wasn't wired that way.
Yeah.
I wish I had more of that from him, right? But I chose the path that I chose, and it's kind of one of these things to where I was in a conundrum constantly because as ground down as some of my ethics may have seemed to a lot of other people, a lot of observers on the outside, I actually had a conscience. There were just certain things, that's a bridge too far. I'm not doing that. It's not something that I go out and I proudly proclaim, right? Because in gang culture, typically, the only taboo is don't tell, right? Which is a strange thing, because if you think of like the 10 Commandments, it's like thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt honor thy mother and parents, thou shalt not covet. These are like noble things. You shouldn't, yeah, those are things you shouldn't do. They're like, but you can't lie. You know what I mean? The only thing you can't do is you can't tell. But you can do all these other things. You can kill, you could rape, you could lie, I mean, just all the way through life. And so
crazy.
when you tell yourself that, right?
That's crazy.
What part of you doesn't admit that there's something to me that's broken? The fact that I'm okay with this and not like, you sprung this on me today. Well, look, you know what? I'm done. Push all my chips in, I'm done. I'm out. No, you're still chasing it. And you have to be able to get to the why. And I think when you're young, you're so caught up in being a prisoner of the moment because loss, although we talk a loss, there was a guy said, you know, about saying goodbye, right? A lot of us deal with rejection in a bad way, and we deal with loss in a bad way. So for me, if you have a social life, and these are people, these are your peers, you know, it's kind of like now there are people that won't have anything to do with me, which is their right, and they've earned that. And I can't say that I blame them based on some of the life decisions I've made. But their life's probably better for that as a result of saying, you know what, I'm not going there with you. I'm not going to be an enabler. I'm not going to be a facilitator of that. Like, I don't want any parts of that because they understand trash in, trash out.
Yeah. That's what you didn't have when you were starting this journey in the system, right?
Yeah.
And so what happened after those 21 months?
I got out and the pattern was the same. The pattern hadn't been broke. Because until you deconstruct, until you get to, you know, they say that which you resist persists. So throwing your head in the sand and acting like the problem isn't there, it's only gonna make it worse. You can medicate it, you could drink it away, you could, you know, go into all these various forms of denial, right? But until you, and for me, I know what it was.
What was it?
But it's that nagging, I'm here. I'm 54, a few months shy of 55. I've been my moniker longer than I've been Jeff. I'm Jeff to my mom. I'm Jeff to my dad, to my sisters. My daughter calls me dad, so she doesn't even call me Jeff. So you have to, what does that do to your psyche? What is the toll on your well-being, right? Or your outward perspective? You know, when we were kids and we played cowboys and Indians or cops and robbers or whatever it was, we played strawberry shortcake, He-Man, whatever it was. At some point, your mom opened the door and said, come home, it's time for dinner. And guess what? See you guys tomorrow. And you went in, you did your homework, you took your shower, you went to bed. You knew understand it was a role. You have people that live their entire lives living up to an alias, right? And the only reason why I don't nag and grouse as much as I could is because I have far too many friends that had their lives extinguished prematurely for a lie. That at least I can change my fate. It's not to say that God willing, one day I'll be granted freedom. But in the event that I'm not, make your bed, you lay in it. But what about those friends? What about their mothers? What about their brothers and sisters, their fathers, right? And even their friends, even though they were crappy friends, what about that loss? They're not here to where they could change it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. So then your pattern is continued, and you are here now for how long have you been here?
I've been down 32 years, almost 33 years. I've been in CDC since 94, October 94.
And why did you, what was the crime that you
I had a
committed?
murder robbery.
Murder robbery.
Murder robbery.
Can you take us back to that day of what happened? Did you ever imagine that day was going to happen?
No, and I had multiple opportunities throughout that evening to kind of take a course. You know, they say they put people in your life for, you know, a purpose, a reason, or a season, right? Every person I came in contact with that night was like, "Hey, we're gonna watch these videos. You wanna hang out?" Nah, I'll be back. Went home. My mom and sisters were in there. They were eating dinner. They were gonna watch some movies. Like, "You wanna watch some movies with us?" Nah, I'll be back. Went to a buddy's house. Somebody's around Thanksgiving. "Hey, we're gonna make a plate and pull up a chair. Stay a while." "Oh, no, I'll be back." And to each one of those, I never came back. And so had I acted on one of them, but that's not to say, based on my flawed thinking then, right? Who knows how it would have turned out? But I know that those 3 opportunities, right? They haunt me to this day.
They were sent for a reason. And you didn't make the right decision at the time.
Exactly.
So what did you decide to do?
I mean, I ended up committing a robbery, and the guy ended up losing his life as a result of my recklessness. I think when we kind of get into the thing of my crime in itself, right, is strange, and because if I could talk to like young people, whatever, right, like the impulsivity, you know, people say, "Oh, I have a lack of impulse control and all that," right? And that one little flinch, that one hesitation, right? Because you gotta understand, the worst thing you can do is arm a fearful person. Some people get a gun and it's like, well, I feel safe because I have a gun.
Yeah.
Maybe I can stop somebody from trying to rob me or trying to push up on me. But what happens if somebody hops out from behind that corner and you mistake them for someone that they're not, and you kill them? And now it's not something that you can take back.
Did you operate from fear that day?
I acted from instinct, right? And so misreading the situation to where it's like, that's my reaction. I'm not trained. I'm not police. I'm not military personnel. I'm not somebody that goes to a firing range. I'm a man that's desperate, that's looking for a quick buck. I want to get in and get out. Bye. And in that one tragic moment, in that instant, it's all gone.
And when that happened and you realized what happened, what was going through your head or your heart?
It's over.
You knew it.
I knew it. I knew it. I mean, I up until I want to say 2018, I had 2 co-defendants. They've both been released. They're both in Tonga. They've both been deported to the island of Tonga. For the longest time, I had resentment towards one of my co-defendants because he told on me. And it was strange because
What are you feeling right now?
I'm like conflicted, but because this is a person that I really care for.